So I grew up, and if I was going to be totally transparent, when I was younger, I grew up in a congregation where we would refer to as turn and burn. If you don't know what that is, that if you're new to church, that basically means, hey, you better get your act together or you're going to hell. Okay? So it's a relationship based on fear alone. Not just the holy, reverent fear of God, but just like nothing else. No relationship, just get your stuff together. So that would definitely have been my relationship status with the Lord. I started working for what I'm going to call an NGO, or non-government organization, in another country. Okay? So I was working at this NGO. I was teaching in refugee camps, and another NGO had a clinic, small home, specifically for people with leprosy. Okay, leprosy was very shunned. Nobody wants to catch it, obviously, and this particular family was running this small clinic. They also did things like education. Incredible family, Gladys and Graham, and Graham heard that, and I'm here, I'm living where they are. Graham heard that a place of worship needed some repairs. So he takes his two small boys, and they jump in the Jeep, and they're going to go out to the outskirts of the village, and they're going to go work at this place of worship. Okay, no big deal. It's quite a ways, so they're just going to sleep over there. They'll sleep in their Jeep. Sounds reasonable. We found out the next morning that somehow in the village, people had gotten stirred up, and there was a riot. And not only did they burn the house of worship, but they burned Graham and his two boys alive in their Jeep. And I was not very far from this. And I was 19 years old, and I was like, hold up, God. What happened to the whole good things, good people thing? 19, really scared. And wonderful leadership there reminded me of John 16:33. It says, I have told you, this is Jesus himself speaking, I have told you all this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth, you will have many trials and sorrows. I didn't understand that yet, but I would. But take heart, because I have overcome the world. So when this kind of things happens and you're working for an NGO, you get these like emails and like letters from the embassy saying, hey, you probably should head out of the country until things die down a little bit. So I'm like, okay, I'm 19. I think it's a really good idea. Doesn't like the embassy know these things? So I go to my leadership team, great, sweet, kind, compassionate people, and they reminded me of this verse, and they said, Rachel, you realize the only reason it made the news is because they were from Australia, right? And I was like, what? They're like, these things happen all the time. People change religion or have conversion experiences or do things that are contrary, and they forfeit their lives. The only reason that it made the newspaper and the embassy is telling you about it is because they weren't from here. And then in the nicest, sweetest way possible, this man looked at me and said, Rachel, if we left every time something like this happened, we'd never go anywhere. This man could see what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego could see. Later on, you could see what Daniel could see, and I'm like, I would love to be like, amen, oh yeah, absolutely. No, I am 19. The relationship with Jesus thing is very tentative right now, okay? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Why would we go back? So I get transferred over. It's part of our program. You go from this area to one part, and I go up to another area, and I'm doing my job. I'm working with refugees, and keep in mind, this was a few months after all this went down. And I'm supposed to be on my way to my job. Everyone in this organization has a job that they go to. It could be healthcare, it could be education, water sanitation, whatever they do. They're going and doing their jobs. And I get up, I have one of those funky bugs that you get over there, and I'm just like, I'm starting to go towards the tube stand, and I'm like, I just can't do it. So I go back home, And as I'm ready to go back into the compound that is now empty, everyone's at work, I hear the sounds of breaking glass. I hear screams. I hear things starting to explode, and I'm like, no. Because I knew what was happening, and it's called a bunda. Bunda is just a word that means closed, and it means that we're closing down because of a riot, okay? Remember, riots and I had an experience just a few months back, okay? And the crazy part about this is typically this community is very, very, very people-oriented, okay? They're very big on their community. So typically when a bunda normally happens, everybody has a heads up. It's secret, okay? But like someone's uncle, whose cousins, who's Joe, who knows somebody, it always gets around, right? So we're always like, okay, bunda on Tuesday. So we grab our water and a pack of Uno cards, and everybody just hunkers down. No big deal. Having a bunda randomly break out is extremely rare. So I'm alone in my compound. I can smell tires burning. I can hear the screams. And I'm like, great. I'm not feeling good. So doing what I thought I should do at 19 years old, I just went to bed. I'd love to say I prayed and God, no. I just went to bed. And I wasn't feeling good, and I was sick, and I was achy, and I wake up in the middle of the night. It is still going. Fires are still burning. People are still yelling and screaming and shouting. And I am so scared. I don't know if you've ever had fear so intense, and like I said, so real that you just can't move. I knew I needed water, bad. Like Matt just got me water. It was really nice. I knew I needed water, and it's not a big deal, right? I'm on the top floor. The filtered water's on the bottom floor. It's just go down some stairs, okay? But if there's times in your life where the reasoning part of your brain is completely overshadowed by the feeling part of your brain, and I was terrified, and I just needed water. And all I said, very eloquent prayer, was help. That's all I could really think of at the moment. And it was amazing because this had never happened to me before, but it happened in that moment, and I've heard other people talk about it, but it said, Rachel. And it wasn't me. It was this still small voice, and immediately in my spirit, I knew it was the Lord. I knew how blessed I was to have that. He said, can you trust me to the door? It was very humbling because at that moment, I don't think I could have gotten out of my bed. I was so scared. But I could see what was going on in my room. There was no one in my room. So I was like, sure, I can trust you to the door. No, I was trusting what I can see, right? So I walk to the door, and I stand there, and the door is nice and cool. It was a metal door, and I lean my head against it, and the voice comes back. Can you trust me to open the door? And eventually I open the door, and I'm standing in the doorway. It is pitch black in a bunda. The power gets shut down. And the light is coming from fires, and the only sounds are screaming. And he's like, can you trust me to the top of the stair? See, God, in his infinite gentleness and his wonderful loving grace, decided to meet a 19-year-old kid exactly where she was. And it was not on the edge of some amazing burning fireplace like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He knew I just needed help getting down the stairs. See, that moment in my life transformed my relationship with God.